Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I am back. I'm glad to be able to tap in with the Y2K crew. Um, as I mentioned last week, I was gonna start working out, and I did a 3-day fast, and that's just had me out of commission. But I did just want to tap in with everyone just to kind of let you guys know I will be dropping a video this weekend, one of my normal videos with the whole intro and everything. Um, but I did just want to take a minute because I actually am taking a day to kind of recuperate. And I decided to play some Super Nintendo games, and it kind of got me thinking about some of the more retro games in my collection versus some of the more modern games in my collection. And I started to look, and I was asking myself, are the modern retro beat 'em ups better than the old school beat 'em ups? And I really had to start thinking about some of my favorite beat 'em ups when I was asking myself this question. I always ponder things like this, and I'm interested to know from the community, if you're into beat 'em ups, or even if you're not into beat 'em ups, just do the modern retro games beat the originals? And I can see in some cases, I can see in some cases where they do, but I feel like there are just some things that can never be outdone. And I'll just go through a few of them. For one, I think Streets of Rage 2 might be one of the near perfect beat 'em ups of all time. Like, it's hard for me to think of a beat 'em up that's better than Streets of Rage when it comes to just the raw fundamentals of a good beat 'em up, which to me is great music, right? Like hype music that gets you into it. Characters that are fun, that you want to use and you want to play with because they have cool moves. I think things like hitboxes and accuracy and speed and timing. I think like just the feel of this beat 'em up game is probably the best I've ever played. It's the perfect balance of all those things, and it doesn't overdo it in any way. There's nothing gimmicky about Streets of Rage 2, and when you play this game, you actually feel like you're in the Streets of Rage fighting. So I don't know if there's a modern classic that could come out that will top Streets of Rage 2 for me in my mind, just because that's a classic. Another beat 'em up that I think about is Double Track, Battletoads and Double Dragon. I remember this was a game that I got because I actually got my Sega Genesis late. Like, I didn't start playing this. Well, I played it younger when I was with my younger brother, but I didn't get my Sega Genesis back until I was in like my mid-teens. And when I did, Double Dragon was one of the first games I got for it. Double Dragon, honestly, the best thing about Double Dragon to me is the variety and just how long the game is. There's so much variety in the stages. It's not like Streets of Rage 2, where Streets of Rage 2 is a pure beat 'em up. There's no gimmicks, there's no nothing. You're just beating up people from the first level to the last level. In Battletoads, it's a beat 'em up, but then you have these cool aspects to it where you're like, not hang gliding, but where you're kind of like, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Where you're kind of, it's not parachuting. I can't think of the word, but where you're basically, kind of like cliffhanging. You're cliffhanging and you're swinging. You have levels like that. You have different levels where like you're riding a motorcycle or like a hoverboard, which, a lot of people say they stole that from Turtles in Time. But, there's just a lot of variety in this game, and that's what made playing this one so much fun. Again, I think that this game has a much different feel from Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage is like a pure beat 'em up, but there were some cool aspects to this. This one's a little gimmicky, but I do remember Battletoads and Double Dragon being a really fun one. Again, just so much variety, the characters, the colors, they made this one really fun. And then this is another beat 'em up that I don't know how many people rank this, but if you've never heard of The Punisher is one of the sickest beat 'em ups on the Genesis. Again, it has all of the feel of like a Streets of Rage 2 in terms of like hitboxes, the punching, like it's when you hit someone in this game, it's very satisfying. The music is not that great in this game. I'm not going to say the music is great. Personally, I don't like the music in this game. It doesn't kind of match what's going on. It has like a very old school sound to it. I wish the music in this game was a little more hype. It's not as hype as I would have wanted it to be. But the characters in this game are sick. And this is one of the few beat 'em ups where you can use guns. And it's actually like they work, like they when you fire them, again, just satisfying, the sounds, the hits. You know, the sound effects. It's just really good in this one. So these are 3 classics I don't think you can replace. And even on the Super Nintendo, you start thinking about a classic like Final Fight. I mean, this is where it all started. Obviously, Final Fight 2 and 3 took it to the next level, but I remember these 2 guys as a child thinking, why does this guy have so many rolls on his neck? But this was one, and my brother had this game. This is one of the best games we had when he had the Super Nintendo. I remember that. Turtles in Time. I've had this, right? Like, I don't know if this could be redone. I mean, they tried it. They tried to redo it with Shredder's Revenge, and a lot of you know, I've heard a lot of good things. I've played Shredder's Revenge. This copy is sealed because I picked up the copy with the added DLC, and I've been playing that copy. But just for, you know, example's sake, you've got Shredder's Revenge, and then you've got Turtles in Time. And, you know, I gotta ask, you know, if you had an afternoon to dive into a game, which one would you want to play? Would you want to play the old school Turtles in Time? Or would you want to jump into something new, Shredder's Revenge, where you get like special moves and supers and new colors, and you can play as April, right? So I feel like there are some times where, you know, the newer stuff is cooler. Oh, look at this one. King of Dragons. This is another great beat 'em up. But I think there are some ways where the modern stuff does do it better. You know, I wish, you know, in Turtles in Time, I would have had special moves and, you know, some of the cool aspects and features that we have in this game. But I think that, you know, for me, just there's something nostalgic about popping in the Turtles in Time and getting it going. So I guess it's really, the question is, you know, how much of a factor is nostalgia for you when selecting what you want to play? And does nostalgia determine how good a game is? Like, do we say a bad game is good because of nostalgia, or do we say that even though there's a game that's better, are we still going to say that Turtles in Time is the best just because of nostalgia? I'm really interested to know, like, how nostalgia impacts, you know, how you feel about a game and how great a game is, and if it's better than the originals. I think a game like Guacamelee, even though it's a modern beat 'em up, there's nothing on the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo that I can really like compare a game like this to. So I think in terms of newer beat 'em ups or modern day beat 'em ups, I think Guacamelee 1-2 Punch is a great just addition into the genre. And, you know, this is a game, a lot of colors, pretty funny, cool stuff happening here. You get both games in this one, so this is pretty cool. But I think Guacamelee was one that was done right. Fight and Rage, I had a few copies of this game, but I kept this one sealed. But Fight and Rage, I mean, this one harkens more to the classic beat 'em ups. I don't think Fight and Rage is as like gimmicky as like a Scott Pilgrim, which is also like a beat 'em up, but I actually sold that because Scott Pilgrim isn't one of the best modern day beat 'em ups. But Fight and Rage is cool. I like the characters. I like beat 'em up games that have characters that you want to play as because they have cool moves. It makes it exciting. It makes you want to play the game. It makes you want to do the moves. It makes you want to master the feel so you can do a run through and beat the game without, you know, losing any lives. And then speaking of lives, you have 99 vidas, which I'm pretty sure it stands for 99 lives. Is that, am I wrong? Someone let me know down in the comments. But you've got 99 vidas. Again, this is kind of like a modern day take on more of like an old school beat 'em up. This one has more like River City feels to it. This beat 'em up game. But again, I don't think this was one that can kind of hold a candle to more of the old school ones. 99 vidas isn't a game that I played a ton of, downloaded it, played it for like a few minutes, but it didn't captivate me. And it didn't make me want to continue to play and play on and play on. So I will say Shredder's Revenge easily will suck you in. So will Fight and Rage, right? These are two modern day classics, modern renditions on a classic genre. But like I said before, you know, there are just some games that just can't be outdone. To me, Punisher, I mean, I'd have to see it. But Punisher, even though it's old school, this is a beat 'em up that was way ahead of its time. Really great graphics, really great gameplay. And then also the classic. I mean, this is the Godfather. I mean, you can't mention beat 'em ups without having Streets of Rage 2 in that conversation. So, yeah, my copy is the not for resale copy. This is the copy that I think came with the system when they were selling it with the system. This one's actually pretty clean. I picked this up in a lot from a lady who had her Genesis stored, I guess, in her attic for like 30 years or 20 years, never played the games more than once. And then she hopped online one day and decided to sell them all for like $60. And they were all like super clean. As you can see, the carts are like she barely played these games. Like the carts are super clean. All the inserts are like, oh, that one's got a little bit of a ding, but the manual, right, the manual's got a little bit of wear and tear on it. But a really clean box, really clean game. So I'm glad that I have these. But let me know. Let me know down in the comments. I do, like I said, I have a video coming out. I do plan on putting out one of my normal videos this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. Just had to take a day to recoup, so I'm just playing some video games and just relaxing here for today, and then I'll have something filmed up for you guys. I know it's been a few days, but thank you to all of those who've been subscribed. Thank you for hanging out with me and checking me out. Be on the lookout for that video. Should be dropping soon. I am the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.